Hello, everybody. Happy Taco Tuesday, y'all. I hope that you're having a great day. Sorry. Real talk for a second. If you have been around here for a while, you know I get up really early. I get up at like 5 every morning. So by the time it hits like this time, it's 10 a.m. for me. It's kind of like lunch, but not really, because I like to kind of keep like a semi-normal schedule. And so I'm usually starving right before I start this, and then I start it and I have immediate regrets. I'm like, why didn't I like not eat a banana or something? So today I ate right before this. So if you see stuff in my teeth, I'm sorry. We're just keeping it real here, okay? Like I had some granola and yogurt, and yeah, I hope that that doesn't get in the way of what we're doing today. All right, enough about me. Hi, Sydney. So happy that you're here. So today we are going to talk about the Apple Podcast updates. There's a lot going on, y'all. There's a lot going on, and it just like the plot keeps thickening on what is actually going to happen. So if you are watching on the replay, if you're just now hopping in, tell me where you're watching in the comments, because we have so much to cover today about Apple Podcast and some of the other things that I have seen. Just kind of like there's a throwdown happening right now in the podcast world. So for anyone that's brand new, you are either brand new to this audience, you've never seen me before. Hi, I'm Crystal. I teach entrepreneurs how to start, launch, and market their podcast. And if you are just now getting into the podcast game and you're like, what are all these changes? What is happening? Just know that some of the changes that are happening in 2021, like in real time, like it hasn't always been like there's new updates rolling out constantly, like every week or every month. But what's specifically happening right now is Spotify got in the game a few years ago, and they have taken over a lot of the market share, and Apple is not happy about it. So we are in real time watching a battle for who's going to be the number one podcast player in between Apple Podcast and Spotify. Like they're pretty close contenders of who's gonna win. I don't know. And I don't know what winning actually looks like. But I can tell you from my perspective as a podcaster, I've been doing this for 3 years, and 70% of my audience, if you listen to my podcast, you're probably listening on Apple Podcast. So you won't see me talk a lot about Spotify simply because as a consumer of podcast, I don't listen on Spotify. And I listen on Apple Podcast or a player that utilizes the content from Apple Podcasts, like Good Pods. This is something that I've talked about before. I love Good Pods. It's such a cool app where you can have the interactive feature, but there's also ones like Pocket Cast, Podchaser, like Podcast Addict. Like there's so many, Castbox, really cool apps that are out there. So that's kind of my disclaimer of why I'm talking about Apple Podcast. And it's only been a week since I announced all these updates, and we're still kind of combing through to understand what's happening. So drop your questions. If you have any in the comments, make sure that you put a Q in front of it. If you have a specific question about Apple Podcast, even if you're watching on the replay, drop a Q in front of it and I'll come back and answer all the questions. But yeah, there's a lot changing from a gut like perspective. Like if you were to ask me like, what is your gut feeling? I think that it's going to be a great thing for podcasters, but also I see it being something that's a little bit more intimidating for someone that's brand new, that's never started, right? I've been doing this for 3 years. I'm like, oh, we just have to pivot. We just have to change. Whereas someone that's brand new, they're like, wait, now I have to navigate these other waters that are brand new and other people are navigating them. Like, it's okay. If you're part of this community, we're all going to navigate this together, and I'm going to keep doing my research and understanding exactly what's going on so you don't have to You know how to do your homework, right? You can copy my homework. I'll just give you my paper. Did y'all ever do that? I never cheated on any kind of things, but sometimes we collaborated on homework in school. Let's just be honest. Hey, Mandy, glad that you're here. Yeah, the realness of me trying to eat right before all this happened is just so you won't hear my stomach growling. Like, I feel like it happens like towards the end of one of these lives where I'm talking and I'm like, okay, they totally heard my stomach like growling aggressively, and I didn't want that to happen today. But now I got to worry about junk in my teeth. So yeah, it's just real. Yeah, we collaborated on our homework. Okay, it's what you do when you're in calculus and you're like, I don't really know what's happening. I'll never use calculus again in my life. Let's collaborate together and figure this out. I had a lot of really, really smart friends, and I'm forever grateful for the people that carried me through calculus, because I still to this day don't use it, and I still don't understand some of those concepts. So it's a good thing I don't need them for what I do here. But oh my gosh, I can tell y'all all about the terrible, terrible subjects that I was really bad at school. But we have more important things to talk about here. So, hi, I don't know who this is, Facebook user. You're probably in our group, but hello. So happy that you're here. If you could like put a parentheses like after your name and let me know who you are, or you can select the Streamyard link where you're watching this and it'll allow for your picture to show up. Maybe. Sometimes it doesn't work in the group, but I'm so happy that you're here. Okay, I'm back after a long, long time. So now I'm really intrigued. Who is this? Who is this mystery person? Always love your authenticity. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, that's what you're gonna find here. Anytime you come and hang out in one of these lives, you're gonna find very, very true, real things. But we're gonna do kind of what we do every time. I'm gonna show y'all what this looks like. Let me get rid of this banner so it's not in the way. Actually, I'm going to go full screen for a second. So this is what you will find if you go to the link that is crystalproffitt.com, episode 249. This is what you're going to see. We always have the actual podcast episode at the top if you want to check it out. And then we have the changes that were coming. Now, I don't have extensive show notes on this particular episode simply because I'm creating some content this week that is going to be in the form of YouTube videos that I'm going to put in here. So this will be updated as those videos come out. But I did want to give you my resources. This was the biggest thing. I felt like, and it was so funny, y'all, I feel like I put on, and I've never been like a journalist or anybody that's like hardcore, like hitting, like stay up all hours of the night. Like I can't sleep. I have to just get to the bottom of this. I've never really been that person. But last week when they announced all these things, I was like, I have so many questions. I have so many questions, and I can't get the answers like today, right now. And it really frustrated me. So I kind of went on the hunt for some great resources, and that's what I link to in today's episode. So if you go listen to today's podcast, you'll hear kind of my thoughts and the initial reaction that I had once Apple announced all these changes that they were creating. But what was even cooler is Buzzcast, who they are my friends over at BuzzSPROUT. They released, and I have it up here. I linked to it in the show notes, but I actually have it right here. So if you go to the link that is in episode 249, you'll see that this is a fantastic episode. I know it's long, it's an hour, but they go into so many awesome things, and they do such a good job at linking to even more resources for you. So I wanted to make sure that I pointed you in the right direction of the resources that I'm using, just like any good investigative journalist, right? Like you have your sources where you got your information. I'm not just making this stuff up. And I didn't like want to get into a bunch of commentary from other people that are speculating on what's happening with Apple Podcast. I wanted to get like really good information. So Buzzcast was a great one. And then the actual Apple articles that have come out about this are other things that I linked to in the show notes. So make sure you go check them out. Yeah. Oh, okay. So it's Nyla, and it says, not sure why my name's showing up. Okay. Yes. you're here. Now I can see your beautiful picture too. Yeah. I listened to that podcast this morning. Thank you so much for doing the legwork for us. Yes, you are so welcome. It's funny because I sent out an email. If you're on my email list, then you got this last week, but I sent out an email on Friday and I said, okay, guys, like I'm in the thick of it. I'm trying to get to the bottom of this. I want to understand what changes are coming so you know what to look out for and what you need to know. And I got several emails back that said, I knew as soon as this was announced that you would have details. And it just cracks me up because y'all know me so well. You'll know that I'm going to geek out on it. I'm going to nerd out on it. And that's really what I've been trying to do. But honestly, from a consumer perspective of podcast, it's got me a little uncomfortable because I'm wondering, what are my favorite shows going to do, right? Are they going to go Apple exclusive and I have to pay for it? Are they going to just say, I want to be on Spotify now and I have to pay for it there? Like, it's really kind of got me uncomfortable simply because I'm not a person that consumes like all the content on all the streaming platforms, for example, right? Like we don't have Hulu and we don't have some of the other apps that are out there. We do have some, and according to my husband, he's like, we need to get rid of like 4 of these. And I'm like, no. I make a case for a lot of them. And it's really interesting to see how we consume things. So I want you to think about that from a consumer perspective. How do you consume content for podcasts, for video, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you watch YouTube videos? And I want you to ask, what are my habits? Because there's a good chance that those are kind of in line with what your audience is potentially going to do too. So that's really where I'm starting. Instead of just digging into understanding and deciphering things, I'm asking myself, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do if in May or June or July, podcasts that I currently listen to, I've listened to years, right? Years. And it's been free forever and ever. And there's been maybe a few ads, but all of a sudden I have to decide, well, am I going to pay for this content? Or am I just going to listen to even more ads that are maybe in front of it, in the middle of it? Because that's really what is happening. I know I really haven't gotten to like the meat and potatoes of the changes that are coming. You can go listen to today's podcast episode if you really want to hear the breakdown of everything. But in a nutshell, Apple Podcast, starting in May 2021, is transitioning to a new model that is going to be subscription-based. And by subscription-based, I mean as a podcaster, like you have to subscribe to Apple Podcasts. It gets very layered, so stay with me for a second. To Apple Podcast Creators Program in order to charge other people for, hang on, can y'all see me on Facebook? I just got a pop-up. It says we're having issues. Can y'all still see me? Y'all let me know in the comments if you can still see me. It says remove the destination and re-add it. So I'm going to hop off the Facebook group. I'm going to be right back. Hang on. Remove it. Okay, so Sydney can see me. I wonder if you're, that's super weird. It's saying it's not working. So I deleted that one and I'm going to add it back and we're going to see what happens. I've never done this in real time. Hopefully everybody in the Facebook group can see me again. So Sydney says, I see you. So I'm glad that you're still here. But okay, but let's get back to it. I'm like, hang on. I was in mid-thought. Where were we going with this? So the Creators Program is something that you don't have to do any of these changes. I want to make that very clear. Like you don't have to opt in to Apple, but you will have to make a decision on what you want your content to represent. Okay, these are, like I said, I have lots of questions. I still have so many more questions than answers for you. And I'm working on, like in real time, figuring out what this means for me and for my show, because I haven't made any decisions. Like, I have kind of speculated on what I think will work, what won't work. Okay, yeah. Sydney says, I still see you. I still see you. Okay. Mandy has a question. I'm going to get to your question in 1 second, Mandy. But it's like, do I want to have all free content and I'm not going to have any control over the ads that are put in front of it, behind it, like all over the place? It could be a Geico or a mattress commercial in the middle of my free stuff. Or do I want to go middle of the road and have some content free, some content paid? Or do I want to go where it's all paid? These are all questions that we need to be asking ourselves from a consumer standpoint and from a host standpoint, because it's really confusing. I'm just going to be very honest. I'm really conflicted because I love the idea of giving away so much of the content for free. Like, I want people to know that I go above and beyond with my free content. So they're like, man, like, what is her paid stuff like? Like, what does it look like to be, part of her program, Proffitt Podcasting? Or what does it look like to get coaching from her because she does such a fantastic job with all her free content? That has been kind of the hook, line, and sinker for me to get people into my audience and to consume my content, is that free portion. But then in the middle, you have, well, are you going to give some of it for free, but then keep like your best stuff behind a paywall? I don't know. Like, it's going to be. So Mandy's question is, so are they trying to go all paid for podcast? So this is where, again, I think that it gets confusing because Spotify, like, okay, so we have Apple. Hang on, we have apples and oranges is what I'm thinking now. But we have Apple and we have Spotify, right? These are the two biggest players in the industry right now. We have Google, we have Amazon, we have all these other ones, but Apple and Spotify are the two that are dominating. And it looks like they are trying to get these big partnerships with these other companies, like I said, Geico, State Farm, all these really big brands, and they are trying to get content, their paid dollars, in front of our content as individual creators. And I think that what Apple is saying is, well, if you opt in to our Apple's Creators Program, then we won't put ads in front of your stuff. Like, you'll have creative control over the things that happen at the beginning, middle, and end of your content. That's my understanding. Again, it's just going to be something that, we'll have to see. It's one of those things. I don't want to say that everything is going all paid. I don't think that that's going to be it, but I do think it's going to be much like YouTube. YouTube never used to have ads, right? Like, you could just watch whatever you wanted to watch on YouTube. Well, now it's like, hey, there's a million ads on it. And it was funny because my mom, she has a YouTube channel, and she was saying that she hasn't hit the threshold for how many. I think that you're supposed to have 1,000 subscribers on YouTube before you can monetize your show. And now she was saying that she has seen, she doesn't have 1,000 subscribers yet, but she was like, I've been seeing ads in front of my videos and I'm not getting paid for that. So this is where ethically I have an issue, because it's like, you have no control over what kind of ads could potentially be placed in front of your podcast. And I'll use my mom as a great example, because she talks about gardening, and the way that she does everything is very much against chemicals that you would use out in your garden, like, True Green and Roundup and any of that kind of stuff. She's like, I don't use it. It's all organic. She has a very specific method of how she does everything. So if she were to put out her podcast on Apple and decided to go the free route, I'm just going to have everything there, then what if Roundup or another chemical that she does not agree with all of a sudden starts advertising in front of her podcast? That would make me uncomfortable. That would make me kind of sick to my stomach, is like, there's things being advertised on my show that I'm not getting paid for whatsoever, and it's something that I don't agree with. these are like principally like not connected to my brand, and I don't want that to happen. So something to think about. Like I said, I don't think everything is going to go all paid, but I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I know that's not a really great answer, but it's what I have for now until everything starts getting rolled out and we really understand what's going to happen. Now, the question was raised, well, will I need a hosting provider still? Because what Apple is saying is like, you upload everything to us. You don't even need a company like BuzzSprout or another hosting company. You can just upload directly into our feed and that would be it. Kind of like a one-stop shop for podcasting. And I think that that's what they're thinking in their mind is like, well, it should just be a one-stop shop. You know, you don't have to deal with anybody. We can handle your payments. If you're going to have subscriptions, we'll collect the $5 a month that people pay to you, and then they're going to take some of it. Don't get me wrong. Well, we could talk about that too. They're going to take 30% of the $5 that someone is paying you on a monthly basis, which is like $1.50. I only know that. Let's go back to the calculus and the math that we talked about earlier. I only know that because I did it for today's podcast episode. I was like, let's pretend it's $5 a month times 30%. That would be $1.50. So don't think that I'm like, oh, she's super fast. No. I did that. I did that on the podcast episode. I should have called myself out because y'all would have just thought, oh my gosh, she's a math genius. But you know better. Again, going back to the authenticity. I can't fool y'all. But so it's interesting to see how Apple plays a part, because while I love the idea of content creators getting paid for what they're doing, I think that that's super important. I think that podcasting is like art, right? Art is so subjective. It's so subjective on what is great and what is terrible and what is worth paying for. All of that is super subjective, but I know how much work that y'all are putting into your podcast, even if you haven't launched yet. It's just this message that you have on your heart that you want to share with other people. I know how much work you're putting into it, and I want you to get paid for it, right? I want you to monetize your show. But I think it's also going to be really hard if you have no following, no platform, none of that, and you decide, well, I'm going to launch my podcast and I'm going to charge for it right out of the gate. I don't know what that's going to look like. I can't tell you, well, you'll eventually get people and it'll be super successful. I don't know, because I've never done that. I've never had a podcast that you had to pay for. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens kind of like with the new up and coming podcast and the model that they subscribe to and what will work out for them. So yeah, y'all let me know. Y'all let me know your questions though, because I want to answer as many questions as I can. So type a Q in front and then ask your question. So frustrated. The site won't recognize my RSS. It's been days and I'm trying to get process completed. Okay, so this is something, actually I still have it up right here. So Buzzcast in this episode, oh wait, hang on, let me turn this off. So they actually put right here and they talked about it. They were like, don't log into Podcast Connect as there have been recent reports of people's shows being inadvertently removed from Apple Podcast. We expect this bug to get fixed in the coming days. Okay. So I have not checked today, but I was totally locked out of my Apple Podcast account because I didn't see this. They didn't tell me like, hey, don't connect. I went in to Podcast Connect the day that this happened and it was like, oh, loading. It's that loading screen and it's like, we'll notify you in a few hours when this was done. I was like 5 days ago. So yeah, still waiting for everything to happen. And actually I was having issues the other day. I was looking at my own, let me see. Oh, I just got a message. Shout out Mel, if you're here. She's like, your Facebook Live is messing up. I'm like, I know. I don't know what's happening. I promise. It's not me. It's technology. Doesn't it feel good to say that? It's not me. I know what I'm doing. It's technology. I wish I could say that all the time. It's definitely not the case. But, oh, hang on. Okay, so my show is up now. I was trying to record something yesterday like a screen recording, and it wasn't showing up. It was not showing up. But now I would encourage everybody, go to Apple Podcast and see that it is showing up on any of your devices, because if it's not, there's an issue. And I actually, okay, now they're there. The other day I pulled up something and there was like not even the word episode notes. It didn't say anything. It was just like, it had the little subtitle, the Apple Podcast updates. That's all it had. And it had nothing else. And I was like, something's going on, guys. Like something broke. I reached out to my BUZZSPROUT family and I was like, something is wrong because my information is not there, and I'm not going to panic. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. I'm re-watching Friends for like the millionth time. I just keep thinking, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's going to be fine. So if you're noticing you're having issues with Apple Podcast, you're not the only one. It's really frustrating because, of course, this is the week that I decide to do my Apple Podcast review giveaway, like this big extravagant thing that I have been planning for months. I like put it on my calendar at the end of 2020 to do this like big review giveaway, and everyone's like, oh, I tried to do it and Apple's not working. Or I tried to do it and I couldn't find your podcast in Apple Podcasts. And I'm just like, so just know that if you're having issues, you are not alone. You are absolutely not alone. I'm having issues. I'm seeing issues. And apparently Facebook's even having issues today. So, you know, we're all in this together, y'all. Sometimes technology works out for us. And sometimes it's just like, I'm done. I don't want to do anything for you today. Sorry. I need the day off. So that happens to all of us. But I want to go back. Yes, Sydney. Oh, Sydney says, it's fine. Everything is fine. It's because like, it's, you hear his voice, right? You hear Ross's voice. It's like, I'm fine. That was probably really loud in the microphone, but it's so true. Like you hear his voice cracking. I'm fine. I don't know why it's coming out all loud and squeaky, because I'm fine. That's one of my favorite reels that I've made on TikTok. Oh, not TikTok, Instagram, by the way. So go check that out if you have not seen that. Okay. We're going all over the place. So I'm going to go walk you through. I do link to this stuff in the show notes for today. Let me take this off. So if you go to crystalproffitt.com, episode 249, you will see this, but I'm going to go full screen for a second and show you what this is. So I do like that they created a place for everything to be. So if you have not gone here, you can go to podcasters.apple.com. But like I said, there's a link in today's show notes for you to go check this out. But everything that I'm talking about, you can see they're talking like they want to be a one-stop shop. They want to be the place that you go to for all of your podcast needs. And I think that if you zoom out from an industry, from a corporation perspective, is they're just trying to dominate the field and say, we are the only place that people go to get their podcast. And I see that. I really do. And I think that if any company could do that, it's Apple. But I think that it's just going to be really interesting, because I just don't know how everybody's going to feel about crap. Everybody's got to pay for their podcast now. They've been free for 2 decades almost. Like, that's kind of crazy. It's really crazy if you think about it, because podcasts kind of came on the scene like mid to late like 2000s. And then now they've been free forever and ever for the most part, right? There have been paid podcasts that have been emerging. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. See, look, like they have marketing information and they have like all these different ways to measure the success of your audience. I love this. I love that they're going to have newer features. So you can see, oh, you had kind of like on YouTube, if you've ever seen YouTube analytics and how those work, like it'll tell you, hey, you had this many people watching this video up until 30 seconds and then they dropped off. Or they'll show you like a steady declining graph of like, you had everybody hooked in until you talked about this one thing and then people fell off. So I think that that's really cool that you'll be able to see in your podcast episodes, oh, we were talking about this and then maybe you mentioned something, people were like, I'm just done, like I'm turning it off. Or all of a sudden your listenership drops and you don't know what happened. Maybe you could go back to a specific episode and see like, oh, this is where I lost people. So I love, y'all know me, if you've been around here, the data, it gets me like so excited. So I love this. Let me see, new marketing stuff, like how to like do this, created embedded players to get your show in front of new listeners across the web. This is interesting. I don't know if this is more like them trying to pretend like, oh, we can make really simple websites like with your embedded podcast episodes. I don't really know. Again, I'm just discovering a lot of this stuff and really studying it. But, here is the basic, like, here's what is supposed to happen in theory. And we've seen kind of across the last 7 days, it's not panning out the way that I think they thought everything was going to roll out, is creating an episode and then, learn how to create it. They're going to provide those details for you. Create your Apple Podcast Connect account, submit your show, and that's it. Beautiful in theory, let me tell you, because it's not really how everything is shaking out. But let's go to, this is the news article that was released. And again, if y'all have any questions, post them in the comments below because I am happy to answer any questions. The other thing, and actually I just recorded a video that's going to be coming out tomorrow, that is the follow and subscribe feature. This is where people are like, wait, we have to change our terms as a podcast community because things are changing to where it's not, you can't just keep saying subscribe to my show because it is going to mean something very, very different when this new application rolls out. Because when you say follow, that means you're following a free podcast. But when you subscribe, that means that someone is actually paying you as like on a subscription model. So it's really interesting. I don't know what's going on with the Facebook group, y'all. Like this is the third or fourth time I've had to reconnect you. Hopefully you can see this. Hopefully it's going to come back, but I'm just going to keep going in hopes that y'all can watch the replay. Yeah, not ended. So I may have missed a bit. Yeah, Nyla, there's something going on in the Facebook group. Hopefully you can see it. I don't know what's happening, but we're going to keep going. So we are live on YouTube and on my Facebook page. So if you've missed anything and the replay is all funky, I will definitely repost that in our Facebook group. So if anybody's watching this any other time where we don't have issues, I would love for you to join us in our Facebook community. If you're a Facebook user or, you want to hang out with the community of podcasters, there's over 700 people in there now, which is really, really cool. But we have a Facebook community where you can join us, and any other day we don't have tech issues like this. This is the first time I've had issues streaming into the Facebook group, but we would love to have you in there to get feedback. It's where we do our podcast audits, which happen once a month. Those are coming up in May on the 13th, I believe. So mark your calendar tentatively for May 18th. I'm pretty sure, no, 18th, 13th, Thursday, May 13th is when we're going to have our next podcast audit. So yes, come join us in the Facebook group, but hopefully that goes away. I don't know why we're having issues with that. But so this is the big like unveiling that they did, and they're talking about all these new shows that they're putting out and new things I think that we should get excited about as creators, simply because they're putting so much more emphasis. See, this is the Apple Podcasts for creators we just looked at. They're putting so much more effort and energy into podcasting that it tells me podcasting isn't going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. Like we are bought in. It's like signed, sealed, delivered. We are here to stay when it comes to podcasting. But I do think it's getting a layer of complicated that is something that we can navigate together, and like shouldn't like don't let this scare you off. If you're like, I thought about podcasting, but now I don't know. This sounds too complicated. Nope. No. Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. Stick with us. Hang out here. We're going to dissect everything as it happens over the next few weeks, and I'm going to have answers for you. This is my job, to have answers for you about the podcasting space and to help you navigate what you need to know. So in here, pricing, went in way too close. I don't even know what happened. There we go. So this is what I was talking about earlier when we had the Apple Podcast for Creators information. So the pricing and availability, this is where you as the podcaster would opt into the Apple Podcasters program. So it's $19.99 per year, US dollars. And now we have some international friends in here. So that's US dollars, $19.99 per year. The first time I read this, I thought it was per month. And I was like, what's happening? Like, well, that sounds like crazy to all of a sudden to pay for that on top of hosting, on top of all and if you've been around here, you know, I'm frugal, mama's a little cheap. And so I'm like, I don't know about this. What's actually happening? This is making me a little uncomfortable. But, okay. So Nyla has a question. Nyla, I'm going to get to your question in 1 second. Then what was the other thing I was going to show you? So listeners will be able to access the enhanced search tab with charts and categories and the smart play button. So this is something I don't know a ton about other than what I learned in the Buzzcast episode that I told you. It was linked in today's episode. Let me put it up here. So Apple Podcasts, the updates, changes, everything you need to know. crystalproffitt.com, episode 249 is where I linked to today's Buzzcast episode, which is this. This is what I want you to go listen to. You can listen to it on all these different players, but I want you to go listen to this episode because they talked about this smart play button and it sounded a little more something I don't know that I would utilize necessarily, only because let's just get real for a second, okay? When it comes to podcasting, listening to podcast, I kind of do what I want. Even if someone told me you need to start at this point and do this, I do what I want still. So they were talking about, it'll have you, you start in this section and this season and this episode. So it's a smart play. It can help you navigate a brand new podcast. I don't listen to every single episode of every single podcast that I know and love. There are some where I don't tend to miss a lot of them, but there's some that I'm like, I could care less about that guest, or I don't really want to know what they're talking about with this particular topic. I don't care about it that much. I would rather go, because I'm subscribed to so many podcasts. It'd be different if I had like 3 of my favorite and I just had to listen to them all the time. I'm subscribed to so many podcasts, so I have so many options. And again, this goes back to understanding your audience through your own consuming behaviors. You know what I'm saying? Consumption behaviors? I don't know. Whatever the word is, consuming of content. Understand your own antics, what you do, your quirks. Do you only listen to podcasts when you're working out? Do you listen to podcasts whenever you're walking your dog, when you're folding laundry, when you're cooking dinner, when you're just, doing stuff around the house? Is that when you listen to podcasts? You need to ask yourself these questions so you can ask your audience, so you can understand what they are doing. I know it's super layered and so many but this is how I have gotten to the point of understanding what my audience does when they listen to my podcast. I first looked at my own behaviors and then I asked them, hey, I do this when I listen to podcasts. do you do the same? And they were like, oh yeah, or no, you're a weirdo. We don't do that. It's fine. It's fine. We don't have to be exactly the same, but you do need to have some sort of space where you can have that two-way communication with your audience. So, okay. I felt like that was my soapbox moment. I've come down. I'm down. We are going to answer some questions. So Nyla has the question, can you please guide me as to what I need to do with these imminent changes as I'm getting ready to finally start my podcast? So Nyla, I want you to keep striding ahead. So like go moving forward with your original plan for your podcast. That's what I would really recommend for you to do right now. Only because this app, like the new Apple Podcast app and all the changes, hasn't even rolled out yet. So who knows, like I'm sure if anybody's experienced a brand new app, there's bugs, there's glitches, there's things that work, there's things that don't work. So I would hate to tell you to change everything you had planned on doing and then none of it work and you can't even access your podcast whatsoever. So as your coach, I would recommend move forward with the initial plan that you had. If you were going to have a hosting site like BuzzSPROUT, then go forward with them and then we can figure this out over the next few weeks to the next few months. I don't think that anybody needs to make any drastic changes right now today because this isn't even reality. We're recording this on April 27th, 2021. These changes don't take effect until May. They will be starting in May, and who knows how many iterations there will be before there's no more glitches and there's no more issues. So for your standpoint, Nyla, if you are just getting started, you're going to start putting content out there, I would go forward with your original plan and do the things that you know make the most sense for you and your podcast. And then we'll circle back around to this possibly in the fall. Maybe everything will be like seamless and we'll have a plan and I'll know how to guide you through all this information in the fall. But I'm going to be very, very honest with you. My prediction is from 6 months to 12 months from now, podcasting will look totally different than what it looks right now. Right now. I really, truly believe that even just 6 months from now, podcasting is going to look very different. I can't tell you exactly how, but I think with the subscription stuff, it's going to be very interesting to see what podcast hosts do, whether a bunch of people drop out because they're like, I don't want to do this. I didn't want to pay for it. And it's just going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen. So yes, you are so welcome. Yeah, just keep moving forward with your original plan and let's revisit this. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions, but let's revisit this in a few weeks, a few months when the kinks have been worked out. Because like I said, I couldn't even log into my Apple Podcast Connect thing. I'm just like, I'm just going to wait. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to wait. So, hi, A Hero's Journey with Dr. D. Is it possible to grow podcasts with YouTube seamlessly? Oh, this is such a good question. And I actually get this question a lot. I did a YouTube video and a podcast episode recently. If you haven't had a chance to check out, I have it right here. This is, I always get this wrong. This is the Proffitt Podcast. I have weekly episodes twice a week, and I did one recently about video podcast. And I also recorded a YouTube video where I shared my thoughts and what that could look like. It really just depends on your audience. I have done this many different ways. I've done live streams like what we're doing right now. I have recorded my podcast live and let everybody see what I was doing. I had the audio like software up there while I was recording so people could see what I did, how I edited, how I uploaded everything, just to give them a behind the scenes feel. I've done that. I have recorded videos where I'm looking like directly at the camera, I'm live streaming, and then I'm like I'm talking to my audience here, but I'm also recording, and I use that audio file and put it out as a podcast episode. I have done where you speak to the live streaming audience and answer questions, but I've also done it where I'm just recording a podcast episode and I kind of ignore the questions that come up on the live stream until the recording is done, and then I'll answer questions. There's so many different ways to do this. So I don't want to just give you a yes or no answer because it is a little bit more nuanced. So I would recommend checking out the video podcast content that I have on the Proffitt Podcast as well as on my YouTube channel, and see if that helps like kind of steer you in the right direction. If you are still here, I would love for you to tell me what type of format you're thinking about for your podcast. Is this Zoom interviews that you're going to be doing and then you want to upload them later? I have found with my audience, specifically on YouTube, they don't like long videos. Unless it's a live stream like what we're doing here, they don't want to go back and watch something that was done as an interview. They would rather go listen to it on the podcast and watch quick how-to videos that are between 8 to like 15 minutes long on my YouTube channel. So, but that's my audience and that's the experience I've had. So if you're still here, Dr. D, let me know what format you're thinking about. But that is a great question, and it's actually one that I get a lot. I get that question all the time. Sydney, thank you so much for your thought leadership, my friend. You help us so much. Yes, I appreciate you saying that, Sydney. That's very, very sweet. So I don't know who this is. It still says Facebook user. With all the issues Apple is having, it really seems like the update was a passive attempt at not slipping from the platform ranks. You know, I feel like you are right on a lot of levels with this comment. And I think that they are trying to take back the market share that Spotify, because if you listen, if you're a regular, like you hang out here with us a lot, you know from our BuzzSprout global stats, BuzzSprout has information where they publicly put out, actually I can show you here since we're here and I already have my screen sharing situation going on. Let me share this with y'all. Because this is what happened in April or at the end of March. Spotify officially took over market share. Spotify took over right here. And it's not by much. It's 29.4, 29.3. Okay. But they took over. They took over. And I think that Apple is like, wait, hang on. What's happening? We have been like just kind of in the back wings doing our thing and not really paying attention to this podcast app. But then all of a sudden Spotify swoops in and takes over the show. We're not okay with this. We're like, what's happening? We shouldn't allow this to happen. So yeah, I mean, it's really, really interesting as to what's happening. Oh, hi, Jordan. Yeah. If you're in the Facebook group or sometimes it won't show your name. So happy that you're here. We actually have a great conversation. Jordan and I are going to be, having an interview this week where we're talking about all these things. So be on the lookout for that. Jordan is a podcaster. She has the Dreamful podcast that y'all should absolutely go check out. But I can't wait to talk to her because she actually has a very big listenership on Spotify. So like I said, I have 70 to 80% of my audience listens on Apple Podcasts. So we're going to have a great conversation about what to do and what our thoughts are. So I'm really looking forward to that. Okay, because I started with YouTube, I currently do both. So Dr. D, going back to your question about video podcast, if you've started with YouTube, it's what you feel very comfortable with, then I would recommend kind of instead of saying, how can I create my podcast onto YouTube? I would say, how can I take my YouTube videos and turn them into podcast episodes? If that's the format that you're going for, right? Because I'm sure you're asking this question because you want to make your workflows and your processes easier. So I would ask that question is how can I take the YouTube content I've already created and turn those into podcast episodes? If that's the route you want to go, I honestly, I think it's going to be a little bit easier because it's challenging. If you're not used to creating videos and like I'm looking straight down the barrel of my webcam, I have my microphone here and I have been doing live streams for so long, for many years now, that I feel comfortable staring directly down the barrel and talking, and I could keep going. I'd probably have to glance over at my notes at some point, but if you want to really engage with people on video, you have to look down the barrel, right? And like, you got to look straight at the camera. And for a lot of podcasters, the reason why they chose podcasting is they're like, I don't have to look at anybody. I could be behind the microphone. I could stare off at the wall. I could look at my notes. I could look at my computer screen. I could look at the ground. I could do all kinds of things while I'm talking, and you'd never know the difference. So just think about those things as you consider whether you want to have a video podcast or not. I think that those are things that I wish I would have thought about when I first started experimenting. But I can tell you what did not work for me. I took my podcast artwork. This was way back in the day before I have the Proffitt podcast. Oh, did I do it? Okay, I did it this time. Before I rebranded, I had a different podcast. It was called The Rookie Life. And I would take the artwork of my show and put the audio behind it, and it would just be like a video, but it would just be my artwork and the audio. Those did not perform well whatsoever. I do not recommend doing that, because why would I sit there and watch that? I could go listen to that somewhere else. So that's my other 2 cents about video podcast, in my experience at least. Now, let's say, I know this is not in line with the topic today. I want to thank you a million times over. You're so sweet for introducing me to Mike and TJ from Intro Outbid. Oh my gosh, I love this. They're doing my music and I'm so impressed with them. Oh, I'm going to have to send them a message after this. They are going to love this. Okay, so if anybody missed, it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, I did a live stream about podcast music. Go check that out. It was a bonus podcast episode as well. We talked about having your intro, outro music done. TJ and Mike are getting into the business for the podcast space, and they were offering free music. Like, they were going to create custom music for our audience. So make sure you go check them out. Yeah, intro, outro bed. They were so fun. And Mike was so impressive with like all the knowledge that they had about intros and music and customizing. It was really cool. CJ says, hey, Crystal, I'm in the process of doing a live stream of my podcast. What service are you using? OBS, Streamyard? Yeah. So CJ, I am using Streamyard, and I recommend checking out my good friend Melanie Diane Howe. She is my live stream go-to person. She has a YouTube video. She actually does a weekly live stream that she'll be doing at 1 p.m. Central today. She does it every Tuesday. It's 2 p.m. Eastern for her, 1 p.m. Central. Hang on, I can do this. 11 a.m. Pacific. Oh, I get so proud of myself. Mountain time, I always forget, y'all. It's because I don't know. I'm like, y'all probably know how to convert it. I'm like, I can do 3 time zones. I can do Eastern, Central, and Pacific. Those are the ones. And I'm like, yes. But go watch her streams. She uses StreamYard. She also uses OBS. So I am a fan of StreamYard because of the interface, and it makes it a lot easier to do things. And you can, I have this fancy ticker. I can put up your comments. I can take them down. I can share my screen a lot easier than just using OBS. But I have used OBS in the past. I just didn't do anything fancy with it. I just would turn on my webcam and that was it. So good question. Good question. So Dr. D says, I combine my upload with my live. So the upload of your podcast, is that what you're saying? I'm going to see. Oh, okay. I'm getting a gradual increase in my podcast downloads. I just want it more engaging. I use Anchor. So if you want it to be more engaging, I think a live stream. I mean, if you're already doing a live stream and you want to really engage people, Dr. D, my question would be, how are you getting people to your live stream? Because the question of being more engaging isn't going to be about necessarily the content that you're creating. That is a factor. That's absolutely a factor. But it's going to be, how are you getting people there? How are you getting people to show up to your live stream? Are you blasting it on social media right before you go live, like up to an hour to 24 hours before you go live? Do you have an email list that you're saying, hey guys, we're going to go live at this time every single week. It's a live video recording of my podcast. We're going to chat. I'm going to answer questions, like whatever format you have. But I think that in order to have it more engaging, you need to have more people showing up, knowing what you're doing. Like, for example, I have seen a huge increase in my live streams here because I will schedule them about 24 hours in advance and people get a notification on my YouTube channel and on Facebook. Sometimes I'll send out an email to my list. It's like, hey, we have a special guest. I'm doing an interview. We're doing a special live stream. Here's the link. You can go watch on Facebook or YouTube. And I will have more people show up because they're able to put it on the calendar. So I would recommend consistency and being able to tell people, this is where you're going to find me every Tuesday, let's say every Tuesday, 10 a.m. Central. This is where you're going to find me. I'm going to record this video. It's going to be a podcast episode as well. So if you can't catch the live, you can listen to it on the podcast. So I hope that helps. I'm getting told that Facebook is not happy again today. So I'm just going to, I don't know. I think that there's going to be so many little notification videos that are like, oh, she started again. So maybe I just shouldn't even do it, but I'm putting it out. I'm putting it out there that it's, we're going to have it where it's going to be there. Yeah. So Laura says, I use Amazon for everything, a slave to Bezos, I guess. So this is interesting because I don't hear a lot of people say that they listen to podcasts on Amazon Music. So this is interesting, Laura. And I think that it goes back to people that have different behaviors of consumption, how they consume content, and you've got to know what your people are doing, right? So if you listen to Amazon and you're more prone to that, and you're like, I don't really know what my audience is going to do, you need to find that out before you really start cranking out content or making decisions about, should I go with Apple? Should I go with Spotify? Me, I have my podcast on all the players. Like if you log into my BUZZSPROUT account, I'm connected everywhere because I want to give everybody the opportunity to listen to what I'm putting out. So okay, we talked about that one. Sydney says, is anyone else watching this thinking, wow, Crystal is such a natural on camera. You're so funny, Sydney. Thank you so much. Like, I feel like you've been singing my praises all day. I really do appreciate it. And I have to say that being live, I have been doing this since November 2018 is when I first started really going live. I even had a month in August 2019 where I went live for 31 days straight. So this is just practice. I actually had a pop-up today that came from 2017 when I did one of my first live videos, like very, very first ones. And it was cringeworthy. The phone was like down here and I'm like, why are you everybody getting like my chin? It was terrible. So while I do appreciate that, all I have to say is it's just practice. It's practice. Oh, thank you so much, Nyla. Y'all are so funny. So sweet. Yeah. A Hero's Journey. Great name. Yeah. A Hero's Journey with Dr. D. Yeah. So let me see. Does anybody have any other questions? Okay, I'm going to try to work out the email list, but I do a blast about 8 hours before. Yeah, so this is great. Keep doing that. Keep doing it every single time because maybe depending on when your time is that you're doing your live streams, maybe it's hitting people where they're like, oh man, I had an appointment for this day and I won't be able to make his live, but I'm going to shoot for it next week. And the only way to make that happen is consistently showing up at the same time every single week. This live stream right here, I used to have it, I want to say it was before 2021. We were consistently at like 1:30 Central Time in the afternoon. 1:30 Central, and I would have to hop off because I had to go pick up my son from school. So I'm like, oh, I can only do like, a few minutes and then I got to go. And then I was like, maybe what if I switch it to the morning time? I've had so many more people show up and be able to participate for a lot longer because it's at a different time. So I recommend just find that time that works best for you and your audience and keep showing up every single week because then people are going to know, man, I missed Dr. D's live this week, but I know I don't have anything next Tuesday. I'm going to be there. Like I'm for sure going to show up because I can't wait to hear what he's going to talk about. So that would absolutely be my recommendation. My only question is if someone copies my style, say my colleague, and makes a podcast on the same subject, What should be my strategy, my outlook? Okay, so this is a really, really great question. And this is going to be the last question of the day. If anybody has any other questions, put them in the comments and I will absolutely get back to them. But I want to respect everybody's time and keep these at about an hour. So if someone copies my style and makes a podcast on the same subject, what should my strategy and outlook look like? This is where it comes down to you being yourself. I can tell you right now, there are 100 other people you could go learn podcasting from. Maybe you're here because I'm the first person that you've stumbled upon and you're like, oh, I didn't know other people taught this. And you're going to run off and say, Crystal wasn't really for me. I'm going to go find this other guy that lives somewhere else and he talks about all the equipment and all the fancy things. That's going to be who those people need to flock to because I'm not super fancy. Y'all, let's just be really honest about that. I don't get into the tech and like the really like granular things that you can do with your audio and how you can get fancy with editing. I don't do that. What I do is share my experience with being a stay-at-home mom of 3 boys. And then I was like, hey, I need to find something that I can do that fulfills me while I'm staying at home with my kids. I stumbled into writing, didn't work out for me. I have done this, I've done that. And then I stumbled into podcasting. And I love podcasting. And I will tell you all day about the laundry that I have in my closet when I recorded in there for 2 years before I like had an office where I could do this. And I had fancier equipment. That is my story, right? Like these are the personal details that I infuse into my brand and into my podcast. So if you want to stand out, if you're like, somebody's copying me, like they're doing the exact same thing, even if they're talking about the exact same topic that you are talking about every single time, they could be copying you down to the T, saying the exact same thing the way that you are. One, it's not going to be authentic if they are literally copying everything that you do. 2, you have to figure out how you're going to stand out. How are you going to infuse what your life, what your experiences, what you do on a regular basis is different? If you've been around here for a while, then y'all know I love coffee. Y'all know my favorite podcast is The Office Ladies, the show about the office. Y'all know that I will sit here and talk about content creation and BuzzSprout. Like these are the things that set me apart because this is how I infuse my personality into my content, into my podcast. And then if you don't agree with them, that's okay. There are tons of other people that teach podcasting, but I'm the only Texas girl with my Texas accent that can do it the way that I do it. And that is how I stand out from other people. So I want you to ask yourself, and I know that you've been around our YouTube for a while, and I want to say you're part of our Facebook group as well, because I recognize the name as Pharmacology Difficult, because I'm pretty sure you're a pharmacologist student, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe you are creating stuff and you're like, how can I stand out? How can you share your own personal experiences? Because maybe you're trying to help other people get into pharmacology. And I don't really know exactly what that is. Is that being a pharmacist? I'm going out on a limb. I see like there's pills on the artwork and stuff. I'm going out on a limb and saying it's about, maybe getting into pharmaceuticals or being a pharmacist, something along those lines. So how can you share your experience? How can you infuse maybe your education or maybe your first job doing this? Or how can you talk about your own experiences of like your ups and your downs in this field to where no one can copy that? If they said that, then you would know, they totally stole my story. And that's kind of one of those like bless and release type things where you're just like, I just got to let that go. If someone's going to copy me, then I can't do anything about it. And I'm just a very firm believer in karma, right? Like if someone's going to copy me, that's their deal. That's on them. I'm not going to waste my energy worrying about what other people are doing. I'm going to focus on serving the people that are already showing up and that want to listen to me. Like that's just very firmly where I stand on being yourself, showing up in a unique way that is totally unique to you. Like I could sit here and tell y'all, I was just thinking, I saw my dog. He like walked, I saw his little feet walk past the office. And I'm like, I have a Boston Terrier named Wally. Yes, it's spelled like Wally, the movie, WALL-E. I have our dog, Wally. I could talk about him, and he snorts, and he's loud, and he's the biggest mama's boy that there is, but that's just how I set myself apart. So think about these little things. This is for everybody. How can I stand out from all the other podcasts? You just be yourself. Be yourself. Stumble over your words if that's how you talk. Be loud if that's how y'all are. Y'all, I'm so loud. I'm so loud, and I don't apologize for it. I've always been this loud, and I just adjust my equipment to make sure you're not bleeding from your ears whenever you hear me talking, because I want to show up as myself. And Nyla, she's so sweet to say, like, you're always so authentic. I don't know any other way to be. And I believe that this is one of the things that has helped me set myself apart from other people who do this kind of work that I'm doing. So, okay, yeah. So thanks. He's satisfied with the answer. No more worries. Don't worry about what they're doing. You focus on what you are doing, how you are serving the people that are already listening to your show and the value that you're bringing to them. So y'all blew me away with questions and comments today. This was so good. Yeah, Texas represent. Yes, for film talks. Okay, yes. Thank you all so much for being here today. This was so fun. Y'all come back next Tuesday, 10 a.m. Oh, hang on. Before you go, we are in the middle of our podcast review giveaway. I'm giving away so many things. Hang on. Do I have one? Oh, yeah. Okay, so yesterday I gave away one signed copy of Start a Binge-Worthy podcast. Today I'm giving away another signed copy. P.S. I'm giving away one of these every day, like several over the next few days. So signed copy of Start a Binge-Worthy podcast. And I'm also giving away a free 30-minute one-on-one coaching session with me. So go to crystalproffitt.com/review to enter to win. All you have to do is leave a review, take a screenshot, upload it into the Google form that we have there, and you're entered. So, y'all, this was so fun today. I love geeking out about this stuff and talking about it. But if you have any questions and you're like, I still don't understand what's happening with Apple, put them in the comments. Let me know. Shoot me a DM on Instagram or reach out wherever you feel most comfortable reaching out. But y'all, I'm excited about all the eyes that are on podcasting. I think that it's just a great time to be in this space. And I think that the faster you get out into the world, make those first few mistakes that we all make as podcasters, and get them under your belt, just get your content out, start the machine, get going. You're going to be in a fantastic place in the next 6 to 12 months when things really start changing in the podcasting space for the better. Oh, thank you so much, Nyla. Your authenticity sets you apart. Thank you so much. Yes. And I just appreciate everybody being here today. This was so much fun. Y'all have a fantastic Taco Tuesday, and I will see y'all later. Bye, y'all.